Hello and welcome to part 3 of my Exploring Transformers 6 series. This is going to be quite different from the last two parts. Specifically, in part 1 I explained the origins of Quintessa, who she is, what her motives are. And in part 2 I explained Optimus Prime's motives, his origin as a knight, and how his original name was Nemesis. So if you haven't watched those two videos first, I highly recommend you do before going forward. But originally this part was going to be about the plot of Transformers 6, but there was something else I really needed to get out about Transformers 6 first and have it be all one long convoluted video. I'd split it up into 2 more parts. So this part, as I said, will be quite different from the previous 2 parts and from part 4, because it's not going to be about anything that was actually going to happen or has happened. This time we're going into the ending of The Last Knight, specifically the alternate ending, because I have a lot of evidence here to suggest that there was an alternate ending to Transformers The Last Knight that presumably didn't make it beyond scripting stage or something. But without further ado, we're going to get straight into it. This is for the Transformers fans, so I'm going to give it everything I've got. So the bulk of this theory centers around how Lorenzo de Bonaventura in an interview mentioned about wanting to do time travel. He said that we could do a movie about time travel and that they had a good sense of where the next movie, he's referring to Transformers 6, where the next movie would go. So it implies was they had a plan for Transformers 6, which we know obviously because they had the writer's room and they wrote 10 movies for the next 10 years. But they had a good sense and they were thinking of time travel. I am aware that time travel came up first in relation to a potential Ancient Rome film, but it seems to be here, maybe I'm looking into it too much, but this interview does seem to suggest to me that time travel was something that could possibly have been looked at for Transformers 6. Ever since Transformers The Last Knight came out, there were bits of dialogue that were altered from the movie to the DVD release. Even in the various theatrical runs, if you watched a movie 2 or 3 times, you'd hear different lines every time. And there is one line, however, that was consistent throughout all the theatrical runs of the film and through the home release of the film, the DVD and the Blu-ray. They all have this line, and it's a very throwaway line and makes absolutely no sense and seems out of context. It's when Megatron arrives to Stonehenge. For our world, I activate this portal. Anytime I see The Last Knight, this seems so incredibly random and out of place to me, because what he's doing has nothing to do with a portal. They're not activating a portal, they're using the staff to siphon the Earth's energy and funnel it into Cybertron. So where is he going about a portal? This seems completely random. And who was that other voice there? Was there supposed to be a scene where Berserker is released and that's meant to be him talking at the end? That's something that people have mentioned several times throughout the years, and that's quite a likely scenario as well, but I don't really know. I'm not really going to focus too much on that other character voice, but the fact that he mentions a portal is so random because there's no other reference to portal or anything like that later on. I think by portal, I think originally there was either a scene or something in the script where Megatron and the Decepticons were going to open a portal to the center of the Earth, exactly like in Transformers Prime. We already know The Last Knight is based on Transformers Prime because in Transformers Prime, Unicron is Earth, and in the end of Season 1, Optimus Prime and Megatron travel to the center of the Earth to Unicron Spark to fight him. And I think that's what they were going to do here. The evidence for this, you might be asking? Now, this might seem a bit like I'm clawing at straws here, but there's this concept art here of the soldiers in the final battle. It's called Foxhole, and maybe it's just me, but it looks like they're underground. I know some of you might be groaning or face palming and saying that it's actually above ground and it just looks dark because of all the smoke and debris, and you can clearly see some of the ospreys scattered around the place. But I don't really buy it because the background looks like a slope going upwards and it looks like there's sunlight coming down. as well as that, it's possible the Ospreys crashed down there. I'm not saying this was beyond the portal, but maybe there was some other entry underground or something and the Ospreys crashed or whatever. I know it's not exactly the most concrete of evidence, but it is something I wanted to point out. Also, it's called Foxhole. Maybe I'm just incredibly stupid and most likely this is some sort of military term, but if it's not, I took Foxhole to mean at first glance a reference to like a fox's den or being underground or subterranean. So I think that is referencing underground or something. I could be completely wrong here, and I know some of you are probably ripping your hair out at me saying that, but it is worth bringing up, even if it's not the most trustworthy thing. Bulk of evidence to suggest everything, as I said, was in the Transformers The Last Night original teaser trailer. Remember this, at the very end of the trailer, right when this shows up and then it flashes and the name Transformers comes up. We were all very curious about it at the time. It seemed so random and we'd no clue what it was. It never showed up in any other trailer, any other TV spot or anything. Actually, it did show up on one video that was posted on the Instagram story where it zoomed out and it was Optimus Prime's eye. I wish I had screenshotted that at the time because I don't have that screenshot now and it no longer exists, but I don't think that was of grave importance. I don't think there was anything I missed there except it was purple instead of this greenish blue you see here. But anyways, as you can see, like, this is incredibly random. The Transformers movies, usually when the title comes up, it has some sort of animation like this. Like you go back to the first Transformers. The Allspark comes into Earth and then the logo forms out of sort of like this flame when you see it transforming. And Revenge of the Fallen was just a bunch of spikes sort of zooming around and forming the word. Dark of the Moon, which I think is the most interesting one to reference to this, zooms in on Sentinel Prime's eye and it powers up and you see some of the gears moving and then it all shapeshifts into the title of the movie. I think it's the same thing here. Because doesn't it seem weird how in the actual movie when the title comes up, it's just a picture of Earth and then Transformers comes up and then 2 seconds later it's gone. Maybe this was supposed to be in the movie after Edmund gives his speech, maybe things go black and then this flash happens and that's how the title comes up. That's most likely the cause of it. Whether it actually means something or not is the real question here, and I think it does. Because if it was meant to be in the movie, it's obviously a reference to Unicron. Now the problem with these screenshots is the context or the surroundings. We'll focus on the one about the eye for the main part because the other ones just look like a hallway of some sort. I really want to focus on the one that looks like an eye at first. The problem was knowing where this is. We thought at first it might be Cybertron powering up. And as you can see, if you look closely through some of the cracks, you can see what appears to be space or what appears to be Cybertron. So if this is in Cybertron or if this is inside the Earth, we don't know for sure. But what I think this means is, I think that's Unicron. I think that's Unicron's eye or his spark powering up, symbolizing his awakening in the core of the Earth. And those other flashes, it seems to show some sort of chamber. Maybe that's just me, but it looks like a hallway going into some sort of chamber. That's what I think the whole portal thing was. I think the plot with draining Unicron's life would have involved taking a portal and literally going into Unicron's spark, or his eye in this case, I guess. You might be thinking, why his eye? Interesting enough, as I mentioned in the last two videos, Unicron is referred to as the destroyer of universes in the writer's room concept art. You think about that concept for a moment. The destroyer of universes. To literally destroy universes, you would have to exist outside of the universe yourself. You would have to be outside of space-time in order to survive annihilating existence. So what I think this means is that I think this symbolizes Unicron's eye can see through time, so to speak. I think he has this ability to see different timelines and alternate universes and things. You can see now where I'm going with this time travel idea. I also want to bring up this other artwork. It looks slightly fan-made to me, but maybe I'm wrong, but Quintessa, Megatron, and Barricade in a chamber. It's very likely it's the ignition chamber because there's a statue of a knight there. But I wonder if this is actually the center of the Earth, the core of the Earth. Because there's that big tunnel going up, so I don't know if that's where they came through. The ignition chamber didn't have that. Maybe the ignition chamber was supposed to be in Cybertron's core and that's where that idea comes from? I don't know. But I want to throw it out there as a possibility that maybe that's the core of the Earth or something like that. Again, as I say these things, I realize that the evidence is very sketchy with the exception of Megatron's dialogue and the teaser trailer images. But we're going to get into like the real evidence territory here, and that's the images of history. Specifically, Megatron in World War II and Megatron blowing up the volcano. I presume that's like Pompeii or something. Megatron blowing up the volcano, first of all, is a reference to Transformers Prime, where he caused an eruption to cause dark energon to flow out of the Earth so he could awaken Unicron. What if, first of all, cast your mind back a minute. We were all confused about Megatron being in history because he had his knight design way back when he shouldn't. When he was frozen in ice, the last knight is showing him in some ancient battle with his knight armor, and his bust is in Edmund Burton's castle. The World War II movie showing Revenge of the Fallen Megatron. So what is this about? Like, what is the context to this? Were they really going for time travel? I think there's a connection here. In relation to World War II at first, I have a line back to that because I did some research and there is a conspiracy theory, a real-life conspiracy theory, about the Nazis having some sort of time travel device that they were trying to invent. I think maybe they were incorporating this into the film and Megatron was going after him. That would have been the MacGuffin. And I'm going to explain in a minute how that ties to Unicron and all of that. But to bring it back to the last night, first of all, I think the final battle was supposed to take place in the core of the Earth. And instead of Megatron getting kicked through a wall and out into space or wherever he went, I think he was meant to be sent through Unicron's spark or Unicron's eye. Maybe another portal was triggered from Unicron and Megatron was kicked through it and sent back in time. Here's where things get interesting. How far in the past he would go back in time? Maybe it's all the way back to like the time of the dinosaurs or something, or I don't really know, maybe it's sooner, but he goes really far back in time here. The point is he goes at least more than 2,000 years back in time. And that was probably trying to set up a Beast Wars movie with Megatron, actually, now to think about it. Maybe even before the beasts we see in World War II, but anyways, Megatron is sent back at least 2,000 years. So bear in mind, at this point, he has his last night design. And I think to bring it back to the volcano eruption, I think he was trying to trigger Unicron's awakening. He probably tried to cause this volcano to explode so that Unicron would awaken and he could open a portal to get back to the present day. On top of that, it didn't work. So I think, and this is where things get really weird but interesting, his next attempt to awaken Unicron is he caused World War II. I mean, this is so weird and completely out there, but it sounds so perfect at the same time. I think Megatron sowed the seeds for World War II. Because as we see in the concept art, some of the Nazis were meant to be pretenders. I say some, but what if it was actually all of them? What if every single Nazi was actually a Decepticon pretender, and it was like Megatron's way of trying to wipe out the humans, or something like that? It's an interesting idea, and maybe there was a time travel device in World War II that these pretenders were developing, and he was after it, but instead what happens is, I don't know, it gets taken away or it gets destroyed or something and he can't go back. But Megatron causes World War II, and maybe this sort of global war is what causes Unicron to awaken at first. We know he awakes in World War II because of this concept art of the island. Granted, we don't know 100% that it's Unicron, but it's a giant skull on an island that's way bigger than any Transformer. Come on, it's Unicron. The head even looks like it's growing out of the earth, and it sort of matches the face on the hand of Unicron in the Last Night concept art. So I think this head started emerging, or maybe it was already there. I think it started emerging after Megatron started causing World War II, and Unicron was getting stronger. The reason he didn't awake, maybe Bumblebee did something. Maybe he took the time travel device to that island and destroyed and caused some sort of energy that stopped it stopped Unicron from growing even further, and all that came up was his head. And that's why Bumblebee left Earth to go to Cybertron to warn Optimus about Unicron in the Bumblebee movie. But he never got the chance, and so Optimus sent it back to Earth again. Bumblebee never got to tell Prime about what happened on Earth. But it was after I just said all this that there comes a problem with my time travel theory. And it's the Allspark. Because Megatron, like 2007 Megatron is frozen in ice, right? Why doesn't TLK Megatron, or Night Megatron as I'll call him, why doesn't he go after the Allspark? And I think he did, but I don't know how it lines up. Here's the problem. There's this image from the writers' room again showing their timeline where they talk about Megatron going after the Allspark in Victorian England, and that he was defeated by the Wiccans, but that he killed them all before he was frozen in ice. What's interesting about this image is that the Transformer on the top image looks like a knight. Maybe it's meant to be G1 Megatron, but it looks like a knight to me. I have a theory they twisted this idea a bit. Rather than 2007 Megatron arriving in Victorian England, I think he's still frozen. What if this is actually Megatron from the Last Night? What if he's in Victorian England because he knows the Allspark is there? But the Wiccans are there, and maybe there's a few other Transformers there as well. They fight Megatron, and he gets killed. And that's why Last Night Megatron doesn't appear in anywhere else. Now, the problem with this is if he's dead in Victorian England, he can't be in World War II. So, unless at the end of World War II... Well, that's the first time he gets sent back after Transformers 5. He goes back to World War II, and then he gets sent back at the end of World War II to Victorian England. The problem with that is it would rewrite World War II a second time, so would World War II even happen then? I don't really know. Time travel paradoxes are never something that I can fully wrap my head around. And in this case, there's so much implications for it, more than usual, that it really is a rabbit hole to think about. Maybe I just came up with a theory there as well. What if when Megatron gets sent back to World War II, he ends up getting sent back in time again at the end, he goes back to Victorian England, is killed, therefore World War II doesn't happen, so maybe Bumblebee isn't actually on Earth, and him coming to Earth in the Bumblebee movie is his first time. That's a reasonably plausible theory, except for my mention of the fact that Bumblebee left, presumably to warn Optimus about Unicron. But that would seem like a plausible theory, but I don't really know. There's so many other potential issues with that. I could be here all day trying to think about each different direction that would lead in and how that would rewrite all the movies. But maybe that's what they're going for with Bumblebee? I don't know. But that's my point anyway. I think he was killed in Victorian England, and that's why there's only one Megatron by the time the first movie happens. And this is why Rethink the Past was such a prominent feature throughout the marketing for The Last Night, is because literally history was rewritten. Megatron caused one, probably two world wars in an attempt to wake up Unicron. He caused the destruction of Pompeii, and all in an attempt to go forward in time, I guess, or maybe just to awaken Unicron anyway. I don't know. And this brings it full circle, I think, to Transformers 6. Where does that leave us now? Do I continue here with the idea that Megatron is in World War II or is dead in Victorian England? Okay, so this brings it back to Transformers 6 anyway. And whatever happens in the past anyway, whatever about World War II or Victorian England, the point is Megatron is gone. He's in the past. So where does that leave Transformers 6? Because couldn't he just rewrite the entire future? I don't think so. I think they were just going to continue on the current timeline and have Megatron gone. But what about Megatron being in Transformers 6? Were they originally going to... How were they going to do? Was he going to come back in time? How was it going to work? My idea is that if Unicron can see into multiple timelines, perhaps he copied Megatron's DNA, clones Megatron, and inhabits that body himself. So therefore Unicron becomes incarnate in Megatron's body in Transformers 6. That's quite possible, and maybe that's how Unicron was going to be in Transformers 6. However, this is, at the end of the day, this is just the alternate ending. This is not what I actually think Transformers 6 was going to be back in 2019. I think this is what they were thinking of back in maybe even 2016, maybe when they had the script for The Last Night, the first draft or whatever, when they showed the teaser trailer for The Last Night. Or maybe it was a version they had for Transformers 6. I do believe this theory, and it actually solves a lot of timeline problems. As for him having his Revenge of the Fallen design, I think maybe he just scanned a tank or something, or maybe Unicron sent Megatron from Revenge of the Fallen back in time. That's possible as well, but I don't want to get into that because that's way more confusing. The point is, I think you get what I'm trying to say with this video. This might have been an alternate ending for The Last Night. And that's why the line, for our world I activate this portal, would make sense in that context. But there was no portal in the final film, and I don't know why they left the line in, or why that other line from a completely different character was still there. Maybe they deleted another character, forgot to remove the line, and maybe just left Megatron's line in because they wanted him to say something and they were running out of time with the editing. I don't know. I don't work on the movie, so I can't say for sure, but yeah, as I said anyway, just a reminder before I wrap this up. This is just the alternate ending theory I have. The next video, which will probably be the last video in this series, is going to be what I think the actual plot will be. The plot following the actual ending of the movie, Quintessa in the desert and Megatron being kicked out of the ignition chamber. Part 4 is going to be that. I just need to get this out of the way because I would never forgive myself if I went through Transformers 6 in detail without all these important details. But yeah, I am going to wrap it up there. This was just me theorizing. This was less evidential, and I don't think this would have actually impacted the final film in any great way, but it was fun to talk about anyway, and definitely something I need to bring up. But let me know down in the comment section below, do you think I'm completely wrong? Do you think this theory is stupid? What is your explanation for Megatron talking about a portal? And what do you think about Megatron being in like multiple different timelines and him awakening Unicron and potentially erasing World War II? Let me know all that stuff down in the comment section below. This is going to be a wrap here, as I said before in every video I've done. This is for the Transformers fans. We're not going to get a conclusion from Paramount, unfortunately, so I've been doing the best I can to gather as much factual evidence as possible and keeping the theorizing to a minimum to give us a picture of what the 6th film would be. Even though it wasn't going to be the final film, I'm treating it as if it was going to be the final film, so that's my approach to it. And I hope this goes some way to answering some of the questions that will be left because of Paramount abandoning the movie franchise. But yeah, part 4 will be coming soon, and I hope you stick around for it. Thank you all for watching, and please subscribe. Nova Scorvace out.